Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Deadlock Fight Night, number 27. I am DDK, and next to me on I don't know which direction actually, it's Jason. How are you doing, Jason?
I always have a hard time trying to interact with people on camera. Because I look to my left, which technically on my screen you're to my left. I have to look to my right, which is just a wall, and there's nothing there to be seen. But man, I'm excited. We had some recent patch changes happen. We have the meta of the Healing Nova probably gone, most likely gone in the dumpster. But I'm curious to see what teams have come up with here in this, well, what, like less than 24 hours to play? Because there have been some pretty big changes.
Yeah, I know today we're going to be running with just three of us for the whole day, so we might as well bring ZP in straight away, so we can just quickly touch on some of these changes at the top of the show. So if you guys are watching, haven't been involved in Deadlock, ZP and Jason, what should they know that has changed in the last week or two?
Well, I mean, there's been a lot. It kind of depends on what your time frame is, because if you, for whatever reason, you're just turning in now after a few weeks, it's like, well, we've completely reworked all the items in the game. But we have had also big changes coming in, in response to the big patch, right? As Jason mentioned, Healing Nova not going to be as big of a deal now, whereas last week we just saw a whole lot of it. But I think right now we're kind of a series of teams still figuring things out, right? Where you had a massive change to the game, how the item system works. And now it's sort of every week we're seeing big changes in regards to like how players are playing around those changes, because there's no way people have the meta figured out after 1 week and this sort of change.
Yeah, I don't think you can ever really figure out the meta until it was like 3-4 weeks in, which we eventually did have with Virtus Pro and the reign over in EU. But for some of the changes, at least for me, that kind of stand out beyond Healing Nova, involves a lot of like cultist sacrifice and changing some of these things around to boons and getting the actual positive notes of it from that. So you have Headhunter, which actually got changed around a bit, where you get extra headshot damage based off of boons. So you get 5 extra damage per boon, and boon is just like a level in game, but also requires a center pellet to hit the head to actually count, which is a big change for like a lot of those shotgun heroes. Also, Cultist Sacrifice had a big change where it's been nerfed early on, but then it obviously becomes pretty strong later on in the game. And I wonder if that's going to change how things are going to be played out in the early game here, because looking at last week, we had a lot of people rushing straight into Cultist Sacrifice right off the bat to make sure they can get those tier 3 minions that spawn in at the 8-minute mark, and then to have that extra power, that staying power in lane.
Well, with that said, I think that's a nice little top of the show, just priming people for what we might expect in terms of the differences in the play. But let's look at the format really quickly. Obviously, if you guys are new to Deadlock Fight Night, you might not know what the hell we're doing here in Deadlock. But what we do is a pretty simple King of the Hill format where we have, for EU and NA respectively, a play-in match, and then we have the money match. So if you win that best of one, you're going to be playing up against Virtus Pro in the EU Challengers match, VP being the winners of the previous week, returning to maybe winning ways after somewhat of a one-win era. Things seem to be switching. I guess we'll have to see, though, based on some of these new changes. And then on the other side of things, in the NA portion of the show later on, we'll have melee creeps who have certainly been the best we've seen lately, and Hydra Nation, they got some work to do to catch up. So some interesting developments in the storylines. But if we look at the schedule of matches, I guess I kind of essentially just covered all of it. We understand that we're gonna have Abrahams versus One Win first up. And guys, I don't know what you think about this, but it feels like a One Win and not looking as strong in the recent patch.
I mean, they've still been in a period of figuring things back out ever since Pocket got hit with their original set nerfs. Also, I just want to say real quick to the last screen, it's almost like a rare Pokemon showing up. TF2 Boomers, after 8 million years, is available for a fight night. So I'm really excited to see the new look of TF2 Boomers. But yeah, I mean, for One Win, I feel like this is a team where, on paper, stacked to the gills with talent, but they've had not the greatest reads, I think, of the meta for quite a while, where they settled into a meta where they were really strong previously. Things got changed, and whether it be their hero pool combinations or just general read about how to play things, it's been a little off.
Well, I mean, a lot of their success came with the death ball that they would run with like the Pocket, the Calico, the Yamato, like a very heavy frontline kind of composition to get in your face and then catch you out in the jungle. They've had to go back and really relearn and refocus on like what do they actually want to become as their identity of the team, like what is their new strategy they're going to be executing on. And I think last week we did see them, they took on Abrahams, they went on to play against Virtus Pro. They did figure something out in the sense of Calico. I mean, ABL had a fantastic Calico game. The box running he was doing was fantastic. Obviously, box running has been nerfed a little bit in this last patch that happened yesterday, but they still haven't figured out that identity, that core identity to the team. And you look at teams like Virtus Pro, and they have so much flexibility that, I mean, I say this every single week, but no patch is really going to hurt them too harshly. One would need to figure out, like, how do we want to start playing these games to have success and to have it more consistently once again?
And moving on to Abraham. Now, this is a team that I think Abraham has, I don't know if that is a massive surprise that they played as well as we have seen recently. I think it's always a little tricky in Deadlock, especially right now where we're having so many changes coming into the game through the patches to kind of assess where this team is at. But they definitely seem to have a lot of potential to maybe become another mainstay here in Europe. Obviously, some names we are more familiar with, like Together and TAS and SAF, but otherwise, yeah, this is a really promising team.
Yeah, I mean, this is, of course, the team that, in many respects, is kind of the old Paravision core plus extras. But I think, to me, the most exciting story on the extras has been Hoot being added to the team, where Hoot actually really has just grinded their way up over the course of EU, where you think back, we first kind of noticed Hoot when he was on teams like Maidong, and has just been a consistently very, very good player that at one point you're just like, oh man, Hoot on Bebop, this is ridiculous, and don't give away the Bebop and maybe you're okay. But Hoot has kind of turned into this player that is really, really versatile, can play just about anything and be very effective at the same time. And then they've also added in other elements like Jamside, where Jamside I think is probably one of the more volatile players I've seen, where you don't quite know if you're getting good jam side on a day or bad jam side. I think a lot of guys depends on how much sleep did jam side get before the match. But when jam side is playing, and it's a good day, then honestly is a very effective player that they've added in here. Now, whether it's better than like old players in the Paravision roster, going back to people like Play With Me, etc., debatable. But I don't know. It's a team that has a lot of potential, but generally has also had more holes historically than, say, VP, which has been more complete.
You know what I want to see out of this team, actually, gentlemen? I would love to see almost a big switch up. Now, Together used to be one of the heavy carries for the team. He did have some shimmers of light when it comes to his Shiv in the last weeks. But I say, give it over to Jamside and Hoot. Let them be the carry players for the team. Together, maybe taking more of a backseat role like he's been doing with Paravision in the past. Let those two try to excel. Get them heroes that they can carry on. I mean, we did see Hoot on Warden last week. Had a decent game. He had a great urn steal actually that happened in the last game, or in that game up against ABL on the Calico. But I want to see him like on a hero that he can carry with and do more damage with. Maybe give him the Shiv if that's in his pool, because he is a very explosive player. He is a big playmaker, but I don't think in the current roster he's been given the opportunity to be that playmaker just yet. I mean, we saw the Bebop originally out of him, but Bebop's fallen out of favor. So give him a chance. I would love to see like a big switch up happen within the roster.
But whilst we wait for the Mo and Krill 1v1 to get things kicked off and get that draft underway, I'm curious what you guys think should happen in this matchup. Obviously, Abraham's as a team is not no walkover, but obviously one win has been so good for so long. Obviously, they showed a little bit of wonkiness in trying to adjust to the new meta, but you feel like they have the depth in terms of the hero pool across the entire team that they should be able to make the adaptations just by sort of seeing from like a team like VP, like what's been working. Oh, yeah, muted.
Whoops. We start getting to the idea of what teams should be doing in this patch. It's kind of interesting because we have data from last week, but I feel like everything has been changing week to week that I'm like hesitant to be too definitive on you should pick X, Y, or Z first, as with one exception, is I still think that it is pretty bad in Deadlock to not have at least one of the two playmakers in the draft. Like, even when we see teams go with different strategies that decide, okay, no Paradox, no Holiday, I feel like the hit rate of those comps actually working has been pretty low regardless. So like, no matter what supporting cast, whether it's gonna be a week where you're hard prioing something like Abrams early, or you're hard prioing, you're deciding, oh, it's gonna be more of a Kelvin week, whatever it may be within the meta, I just feel like the one constant is that you still want to make sure you have ways to initiate or things go really badly.
Bro, Shiv. I'm surprised you even mentioned Shiv, man. He was like our #1 priority in last week's games. I would imagine he's still going to be one of those #1 priorities in the game, even with some like slight nerfs to his kit in this last patch. But I still think he's going to be a massive pickup here for Abrahams, to be honest.
All right.
I don't know.
I'm going to cut you off there, ZP, for a second, because I think it's time to get into the Mo 1v1. Then we can return to your point. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. In fact, you can make the point right now, ZP.
No. We're watching some Mo. Mo's battling, and the EU Mo 1v1s have just continued to evolve over time. We're not seeing any of the parry slide tech, which may have actually been patched. I'm not 100% sure, but already towards the end, a little bit of wall jumping over here, Jason.
I'm curious, what's the next evolution of the Mo 1v1s? Is there another world where we figure out, is like a speed run around the map that we do, see how fast you can do it? I actually don't know who won because they didn't use their correct names, but I believe it was Abraham's, if I'm not mistaken, due to Parseval telling me. I mean, that was done live. That definitely wasn't pre-recorded.
Well, we got Abraham's on that first pick, and ZP, I think if you wanted to finish the point, this would be a great moment to do so.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Shiv will be first. I feel like the last time Shiv had his rage gen touched, he went to the bottom of the barrel instantly, which felt like an overreaction to me, but I don't know. It just feels like for Shiv, anytime anything rage related is hit, there's an immediate just like antibody reaction from the player base. But we'll see here. Wraith is going to be the first one banned. That is one thing I probably wouldn't have expected to have changed. But we'll see from one win here. Do they ban Shiv? And if they don't ban Shiv, does it get taken by Abraham's? Because I think there's a world where it doesn't.
We saw some pretty big like change-ups in last week's pick bans, thinking back to the week before as well. We had, well, Abrams being one of the most highly sought after picks in a lot of the games we had happen. And then he just disappeared off the face of the planet for some reason. And we're not sure what the switch up necessarily was in that case. But with Shiv being banned away, that obviously does alleviate some pressure here of you don't have to pick a Kelvin early anymore.
So this is already what it feels like to me, a nice evolution, because we did see a lot of Shiv, and she was obviously very, very good. So it feels like we're getting that kind of that delayed reaction in that respect, that everyone's okay, we've got to switch things up here. Going into the first pick, are we looking at the paradox here? Coming back in, it's going to be Calico instead.
That's a denied pick for sure. Take it away from ABL. I mean, he looked great on it last week. Again, the boxy routes he was pulling off was amazing. The solo play was able to do. He built up such a big lead from just doing that alone that no one could deal with him at all.
Yeah, and also one hero that you might be seeing here early may be the Warden. Would be my guess. With how okay, what?
Empty Dreams locking it in.
Okay, that is classic one win. If it is good right now, that'll be something else. I mean, maybe Return to the Pocket, where I love how Pocket just goes on into the ups and downs in the valuations over time. And look, we'll see what's cooking, but maybe they end up with the Warden here on top of it, because I still think Frontline comes at a premium, and Warden's still been pretty good. And Sinclair, but that's actually good. That gives you more room to grab it later because you don't want to pick Warden into the Sinclair. So I actually think that's a really smart pick.
Yeah, I like that thinking.
I'm gonna bring your attention to Discord really quickly because there's something you might need to chime into.
Oh yeah, I saw.
Admin.
I saw. That's why like the last the half part of your point zoned out, because believe me, I saw. I'm taking a look.
Don't look so happy, Z. Okay, your camera on my side froze. I'm not sure if that was just me. I was like, don't look so happy there. So yeah, Pocket Sinclair being picked up for one win. Obviously, that does kind of change around how maybe you do want to be picking here for Abrahams, because obviously things like Seven, Warden, like you mentioned, are definitely heroes that can be a little bit risky, but we're still looking for maybe one of those hard carries to come through. But as you talked about Frontline, Abrahams is scooping them all up with Calico, with Geist. Maybe Amato would be a decent pickup here as well, because then you do have like a really big death volley kind of comp to run with. But then again, we still have yet to see those initiators be picked up, and it's going to be Holiday secured for Abrahams.
Is there any admin action that we need to bear in mind here with what's transpired? ZP?
Well, the draft may be a little bit different than expected, because basically for Parseval, the coach, his internet dropped at the very last part of the draft, and it random something that they didn't want to pick. So we're kind of going through that right now is where we're at. So you can pick Jason's brain for a moment while I take a look at what is going on.
All right, well, the initiator's coming in a little bit later here. I feel like that's a slight trend change as well from what we were used to seeing. Holiday, Paradox, Jason, which is better right now? Because before in the previous patch, before the huge changes last couple of weeks, Holiday was head and shoulders above Paradox in priority.
I think it depends on a couple of things, because I think it depends first with like comfort level. I think Paradox is a much safer pick hero to play. With Holiday, you have to get very close and very personal. You have to use most likely pick a Veil Walker to look for those initial picks. Obviously have the movement to escape here, but I think all in all, Holiday gives you kind of a little bit more. It gives you more damage, gives you a lot more control in fights as well with those barrels. But I mean, with Holiday not being first banned anymore, there's no need to rush the initial picks of those two. Instead, it's just about, let's get some heroes that we want to take away from the enemy team, or maybe something we want to play a little bit more on our side to have some advantage going into the next round of picks. But with Ivy being banned away, I mean, Kelvin, we saw Dynamo out of Saint last week out of Abrahams. He had a phenomenal, was it 4 or 5 man singularity kickoff near one of the Urn fights. It's definitely in the pool of Abrahams. So I wouldn't be surprised to see one win maybe lean towards Kelvin, especially when they already have Pocket picked up.
I will say one thing that Ooh, okay, this is I will say one thing I like from both teams here is that I feel like we've gone back into the era of teams respecting the fact that they need to just both get Initiator here. Because I feel like in the last week we saw teams kind of experimenting a little bit more with like, I don't really need the Paradox or Holiday, do I? It's like, nope, actually, yes, you do. So at the very least, I'm glad that's there. But interestingly enough, on the bans, if I were Abrahams, I would have banned the Warden. I would not have left that available for one win to pick later in the draft where we're at.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely open, very open. But again, it's interesting to see which like how the regions are going to decide the priorities, because we usually see a difference even when the meta's a little bit settled. There's usually a difference, and here in EU, it's looking as we would expect. I think so far, the guys being prioritized pretty heavily is interesting, and you know, Viscous is something that's been going a lot quicker. I noticed last week as well. So. Yeah, and that's a very late pick Mirage. So it feels like the priority is very hard for me to read personally. I don't know about you guys, but it still feels like there's a lot of experimentation here.
Very difficult to read, honestly. We haven't had like a stable idea of what's gonna be picked in what order since before the shop rework, and then from there it's just been anyone's guess for the most part when it comes to outside a couple of heroes here and there. But one win, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I was just gonna say they don't really have like a good solid like range carry, great talent. We saw Listic play it last week, I believe it was, or was it the week before? And he did a fairly good job on it, going more towards a utility build after he got absolutely wrecked in mid lane, constantly being hooked in non-stop. But they're still lacking when it comes to the front line here for a one win, and I don't think a Mo or necessarily an Abrams would really solve it for them.
All right, well, due to some of the oh, there's the water.
There you go.
So it seems like we're going to have, as I imagine, ZP, you're going to kind of run everyone through what's going on with regards to the draft, because it's a little bit weird, as ZP is going to explain.
Yeah, so basically both teams had draft-related errors in this. This is what I've been dealing with here, and kind of absorbing while you guys were going through the narrated draft. So basically, the story from the one-win side here, quote, they missed the timer early in the draft, and they random Sinclair. Sinclair was not actually an intentional pick. Sinclair was a pure random pick. Then Abrahams, continued the pick as normal. But then at the end of the draft, Abrahams, their coach is Parzival, and Parzival's internet went out, and they random the hero that they didn't want, where they random 7 instead of picking Infernus as they intended. But we've hit a solution here. Both teams have kind of worked it out, and they're going to change it up here. So they're getting rid of 7 for Abrahams. And I think that may be getting picked by one. Okay, yeah. So
it's already been updated, yeah.
Yeah. We've already updated on screen. So they've given 7 over the 1 win instead of the Sinclair, which they didn't want, and Abrahams gets Infernus. Now both teams are good. So it's a little bit of a saga that went down, but luckily here in Deadlock, neither team is like really interested in trying to use the rules against each other, trying to just like absolutely own the other team. So we got some team civility here, which is nice, because that would be it would be way more ugly for me in this situation if I had to go here and make a ruling, and once I was gonna be mad and whatnot. So we got some mutual cooperation.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Just works out.
I'm thinking about it, and like I would actually, if Abrahams is brave to do that, because I feel like when you see a Sinclair being picked up as like a second pick, you kind of then maybe tweak your actual pick order or what you want to pick around that, knowing they have a Sinclair, because maybe they would have picked Warden for Abrahams. But either way, as you said, both teams agree to this, so I'm not going to knock them whatsoever when it comes to how this game's going to play out. And I mean, Infernus, he did have some slight buffs, if I'm not mistaken. That afterburn builds up a little bit quicker when you get headshots, so it can get the after and proc a little bit faster. It's not the biggest of changes, but maybe when it comes to laning phase, it could be something to be looked at, considering we're not seeing health novas or healing novas being used anymore, or most likely not being used anymore. And one thing that I talked to Lightbringer about that made it so strong, actually, that we didn't really even think about last week, was the fact that you can heal minions with it. You heal the creeps with it. So it makes that lane shove even harder, having like a full health wave pushing forward, or if you have obviously two waves stacked on top of each other. So with that change, and with poke damage sticking a little bit more reliably now when you don't have healing novas to use, we could see lanes play out a little bit differently than last week.
Yeah. So we're going to be going into the game. Well, CP, I would normally say final thoughts, but we won't kick you out straight away. So feel free, though, to give us your overview, though, of how you expect this one to go based on this finalized draft.
I mean, it's going to be pretty interesting. I think probably the most interesting thing to me is the pick of Grey Talon here, where I feel like Grey Talon has been all over the map in performance post-patch. I mean, probably the most hit hero as far as hero power goes, where he went from the we must permaban or first pick into maybe we pick it end of the game, maybe it works out. Also, I think Warden is a little bit, not questionable per se, but like I kind of want to see how it pans out, because Warden also did get hit with a pretty big nerf too in the last patch. So, I mean, for one win team, it's interesting. I think it's either going to shock us in a good way or disappoint us in the expected way. And there's not a lot of in between. Whereas meanwhile, Abraham's just picked something team comp wise that is reasonably solid overall. All that being said, when I looked at the lanes, probably prefer the laning here of Abraham's a bit more. I mean, you got Geist, you got Mirage, Calico, Holiday. I think one win in the first like 5-6 minutes of the game may have some difficulties, but we'll see.
Nice. Well, we will leave ZP's mic open. He's gonna be able to contribute whenever he wants, or not at all. We'll see. Jason, what do you think about how these early lanes are stacking up?
Kelvin and Furnace I find kind of interesting, but I can kind of understand it. You want to give Jam side, a decent start, especially against the Warden and the Great Talents. A lot of poke coming your way, so you can have a lot of sustain in that lane. I think the real kill potential obviously is going to be in that mid lane with Abraham's, because you have Saf on Mirage, and then you have Tass on Holiday. We know how good Tass can be as a player. Definitely one of the best paradoxes in my eyes. But with the Holiday, I mean, that's a lot of poke you can put down. I think it comes down to like, how is the Paradox played by Overseas, and how's Flammable on the 7 going to be a work around it? Because 7's not going to be too strong early on. Obviously has the stun, but he's not going to be able to provide much damage until he comes online a little bit later on. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm kind of mostly agreeing with ZP here with Abraham's. I don't really necessarily see a weak lane. If anything, it's going to be this left-hand side.
And me personally, I really love playing as Infernus with a Kelvin who's getting the Ice Beam online pretty quick, just because the slow is so nice to just guarantee like good damage catches in the early lane. We'll see how that develops. Obviously, Grey Talon can play from range, but I actually feel like the Talon Warden is kind of hard to make work for big kill potential, at least in the earlier stages. So it might give early edge to the Infernus Kelvin. We'll see. But yeah, this mid lane is often so important in terms of setting the tone and the pace for teams. The team that wants to get aggressive first, it all comes from winning the mid lane first. And that's something that one win, I think, especially pre the shop rework patch, were so known to do and be good at and leverage into wins. So it'll be fun to see them back at it again. The Calico thing, I got to say, is interesting too as a separate point. It does seem to be in a class of its own to a certain extent, Jason. I'm curious what your thoughts are, because the ability to just box run with Ava, I don't know anyone else that can kind of compete with that.
Yeah, I don't think there really is anyone that can compete with this. This Flammable is going to be stunned up to the reload. Coming in for Tass at the worst time, and actually could take a lot of damage for this. Going to be able to back away, though, with the help from Saf. But you're 100% right. Like, she was completely, not untouched, but she was fundamentally the strongest hero when it came to box farming. Obviously changing things up a little bit with some slight nerfs to Ava, make it a little bit harder to box farm, not to mention the changes they've actually made to the boxes as well, and the breakables. So they have nerfed it a little bit, which was why we haven't seen too much running around the map just yet. I think at the 2-minute mark, I saw Saint invade over towards the enemy jungle on the left-hand side, but not too much past that. But yeah, I completely agree. And I actually felt like it was a detriment to like not have her on your team because of how far ahead you could get when it comes to box running in the last week.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll keep an eye on the farm there on that one. Mirage was a pretty late pick. I think that's something that's interesting. But maybe something that's even more interesting is, we'll have to keep tabs on Empty Dreams' performance. We know Empty Dreams is a very, very good pocket, but hold that thought, we've got another aggressive move again, and it's going to be Taz finally getting what he was looking for previously with that early pickoff. And another one coming in there from Together. A couple of weak players here for Abrahams, but nice to get 2 early picks on the board. They've been trying it for a while, and finally it goes their way.
Oh, the chase is still coming through. Oh, Zanya. I don't think Empty Dreams is going to be here in time. Zanya should be falling from this one. A little bit of a misstep here. Eventually does go down, and that's another kill coming in for Abrahams. Off to a very strong start. Even Task chiming in with a second for him in that mid lane. A complete turnaround from what we saw last week, where Abrahams did lose in this matchup. Finally, Empty Dreams, though, is able to get on the board. And if there's one pocket player out there in EU you're going to be worried about, it's probably going to be him.
Yeah, I do wonder if Empty Dreams might be the best pocket player in EU, because this is the top level of competition that we've seen, and actually another kill going 1win's way, so that's 2 and 4 early on, 3 and 4 now, so evening things up actually pretty quickly, and they're going to get some good tower damage off this too. But in comes the bird. We'll see what it's going to find. Oh well, straight in the face of Together. It's always nice.
Overseas had a really good moment there. He gets a kinetic carbine on Task to lock him in the storm cloud. Then he gets a swap on Saf, who's hiding in safety, to pull him into the storm cloud, allowing those 2 kills to come through from Flamboy. I think I didn't want that to go overlooked, because I think that was a really great individual play out of Overseas there to help bring this mid lane back into contention, because now, I mean, they're going to lose their Guardian, but at least they're able to get some kills off it before.
Yeah, it's a great call out. I love that you brought it up. And indeed, with that mid Guardian down, as we mentioned, it certainly gives Abrahams the ability to take some initiative. And I think with seeing how active Taz is being on the holiday, that is, of course, how you want a holiday to play. And with that said, Taz is making his way over to that left side lane. That's going to be a 3v2, but the heroes here for OneWin are underneath the tower, and there's no lasso, so a dive here will be somewhat challenging. So we'll see what, though, if they try to do so. We've got some assistance here for OneWin now. Overseas coming on by, so they're 3v3, so Abrahams might have to be cautious now, because it looks like the engage is coming in from the OneWin side. They're trying to bully them back, and they're going to be successful in doing so. So no casualties just yet, here at least, but on the other side of the map, we've got Who taking down Empty Dreams.
Yeah, a great barrel comes through actually to delay Xenon from actually going for the chase. Hoot down to just 1 HP. This is, I want to say, his last stamina bar to get down to the ground, and does escape. 5.8,000 souls, was able to dive on Empty Dreams past tower right before this. And I said before, right? I want to see Hoot more of these carry rolls, and so far he's been playing pretty damn well.
Yeah, and I don't know about Overseas here. He's very trapped here, but oh, there's assistance. Flammable on the 7 comes in to save him, and the escape will be completed. So 32k to 32k overall, around the 7-minute mark now for both sides. However, again, we do have that slight advantage on the objective, that mid tower claimed by Abrahams, which is why we're seeing so much roaming. Again, on Taz's perspective on the holiday, lasso up, looking for a gank.
Cultist Sacrifice picked up for Xenon. We're wondering how many of these items we'll see picked up actually in this game with recent changes. ABL trying to do some snipes from range, and that's a lasso into Frozen Shelter. You're not escaping that. Even a combustion being thrown on top of this. Xenon, you are more than dead. You are obliterated. And Abrahams, I don't think they're going to get the turret on this go, but they have put a lot of pressure, a lot of investment here on this left-hand side.
It actually feels like they're looking really good in this early game, I've got to say, Jason. I'm really impressed by what they've been putting on so far. Good pressure, and again, we're going to have Task back in the mid lane, looking to see what assistance can be provided. The mid lane tower for Abrahams is now getting quite weak, so they need to be cautious of that lest they give it up for free. And with that said, roam back into the right side lane here as more contestation is happening, and the pressure is being put onto Hoot, but Hoot seems pretty comfortable here. Empty Dreams into the action as well, looking to see if he can actually now back away, getting quite low. So Who is all over this, full HP. Zanya cubed up, but is there anyone to assist there? Looks like Hoot is not going to be going too aggressive for this one, but it's causing problems, doing so much damage and occupying so much attention.
Oh my god, he's still committing for these fights. I mean, Zanya is still pretty healthy. Empty Dreams is, pretty all right so far too. You know, he's still committing for the dive. You can see, like, I guess the blood in his eyes here. He wants to lock those one down. It's unfortunate, though, they lose together in that exchange. You can see it was a little bit of a mismatch. Hoot was trying to go for Empty Dreams, and together was having to tank Zanya. The dive's still coming through. Hoot's really looking for this harass here, and I'm surprised they haven't been able to get the turret, actually, already, considering how aggressive they're being.
Going for it now, though. Just a huge dive. Thanks to all that damage previously done by Hoot, and Empty Dreams is so weak, so weak. Can they find a finishing move? Well, it's going to be onto Flammable. So this is looking really fantastic right now for Abrahams. Coming in there, getting that parry under the Guardian, and here comes the bird from up high, and that's going to connect. Oh, so low. Are they going to be able to finish this one off, though? The chase comes on through. Hoot takes one down just before losing together. And it seems like the battle's going to rage on forward because Taz has come into the action now, looking for the finishing blows. Finds it onto the pocket. Out goes Empty Dreams, and the reinforcements here from Abrahams was perfect.
How is Empty Dreams the last one to die in that exchange when he was the one being focused originally? I'm not sure if Abrahams knew that Overseas was going to be coming on through into that fight. I mean, they had everything against them. Even an owl from ABL who connected onto two, onto Hoot and to together, and yet they're able to turn that one around, get the Guardian down, get themselves a flex slot. Not to mention a 6k lead now here, DDK, as where we have the runes and the urn going to be spawning in just about 5 seconds time.
Yeah, it's a great point. Really good action there from Abrahams to create that gap on the right side and left sides of the map. But now everyone is converging around the bridge buff on the left side, and you can see Abrahams as a unit right now, holding the line. Looks like OneWin looking for the fight, though. The end is dropping, and the fight will be committed. There goes the Gooble to see what he can find. Zanya rolling around, finding the stuns where possible. Now disengaging slightly. Still a good pack here. OneWin, they managed to take the urn away, and they are holding the formation again, protecting the Paradox, who is running that urn at the moment. Now the question is, will it be delivered? In terms of the map control, it is fairly contested for both sides on the right side of the map.
Well, I would actually say it's not contested by Abrahams here because they're more about pushing this left lane Guardian. They get a catch on the Xenon, so that should be a dead Warden. Stormcloud comes to out of Flammable, and the Owl to follow up with that of ABL, and yet Tass is able to tank all of it. Somehow survives. And the Urn, honestly, it could be run for free, and yet somehow OneWin haven't bothered to go for it. Sap gets the chase over onto Overseas, not quite able to get the kill. And with Hoot just showing presence over in that right-hand lane, he's able to keep that Urn away.
Yeah, this is interesting. This is kind of a problem. It really feels like OneWin are on the back foot at the moment in some of these situations. 6k ahead overall for Abrahams. They've forced a scenario where OneWin cannot turn the Urn in. Hoot has been just continually an annoyance on the right side of the map here. And so Empty Dreams isn't able to get that forward space to really secure that path to the Urn. And now we've got Jamside taking down that Guardian. So objectives are being picked up. So right now, all the pressure is on OneWin.
You can see they're trying to maybe go for the turn in this time. But the teleport's going to be there. They should be there to contest it in time. I mean, Saint, he has Frozen Shelter too, so if he can just get here at a moment's notice, he's going to be able to keep them away from the turn-in. I mean, it's leaving out Empty Dreams and Jamside to farm this left-hand side, while the fight's looking to be brewed out on the right. And, I mean, Abrahams, they have the man advantage here. You can see that Xenon's still stuck in the mid lane trying to farm up. He does have a Guardian that he could look to take. But Abrahams have not only been able to defend this urn, they've been able to get themselves an objective and able to get themselves some kills on top of this. So this lead's going to continue to extend.
Yeah, looking pretty scary right now for OneWin. They might finally try to push for this urn, but again, they don't have the players necessarily. It would be a 3 versus 4 with more or quicker help coming in the form of Taz for Abrahams as well. So it's just a terrible look. And so OneWin have to be very cautious. They don't lose players in this jungle. And as we see Empty Dreams trying to find Jamside there, good damage done, but it's going to be pretty difficult to actually finish off Jamside. Probably has that Flame Dash still available. Is going to be able to escape. And in the meantime, again, bigger pressure on the right side of the map here from Abrahams. And they're going to be trying to take the urn away. Yeah.
I mean, Hoot picked it up, but I guess he dropped because he's still looking for the fight. I think he might have actually been able to secure it yet again here, trying to look for the turn-in, while Flammable's just getting pulled into the enemy team. No one's there to follow up with, though. So it looks like he might be able to escape with his life. He gets knocked up once again by the barrel. I mean, meleeed on top of the rope, and he's going to fall to task once again. And that Frozen Shelter going to lock down and confirm the urn turn-in. A huge win for Abrahams right now.
What a steal, picking up some of the kills along the way as well. They are quite low on health though, getting finished off finally. ABL is running through them and now has to back away. In comes Saffron Mirage. Oh, just gets to finishing the Jin mark there. Is going to be yielding a very favorable result, able to tornado away from the prison. And this is a great look again for Abrahams. That steal, the fact that they actually got that urn, Jason, that urn was in play for so long in the hands of One Win.
Yeah, almost like 3 minutes time in the hands of One Win. So it was a 2-for-2 exchange, I believe. Abrahams got the turn in, but One Win got the guard in the left-hand lane. They weren't able to get the guard in the mid lane, though, so no flex stop being unlocked. So the lead's going to continue to extend now up to 12K. 14 minutes in, Dan. This is a pretty massive lead for Abrahams. One thing we can't forget, though, is the comeback mechanics have been tweaked quite heavily. So the farther you get ahead, the easier it is to come back. So if you're Abrahams, you need to start looking towards maybe taking away these jungle camps to really prevent One from getting back into this and lengthening that lead even further.
Yeah, somewhat of a reset after all the action around the urn. But there's about to be a new urn. It's going to be spawning in about 30 seconds. And in the meantime, One Win have a lot of pressure on the left side of the map. Presence in the jungle. At the same time, Abraham's pressuring the right side here. We've got Hoot in the jungle as well. Looking to find empty dreams. There's a lot of presence around that mid side of the map. Trying to protect that Guardian, Abrahams, and at the same time, we've got some good damage getting done into the Walker on the left side. Jamside is there alone on the Infernus, looking to defend, able to do so. And in fact, the pack of 3 players from One Win are falling back, looking maybe to gank into the middle. There's only 2 players there for Abrahams, so they might be ripe for the taking.
They need to be quick enough. Actually, might be tasked being caught out here. There's a swap to come through. Should be a confirm into this one. Stormcloud, Goo Ball, everything being thrown into this one because they want to make sure to take down this Guardian. They need that flex slot unlocked. But now Hoot's going to be coming in from behind. He's set up for a potential fight here. I just don't know if they have the men to go for it if they want to commit to it, especially with the urn being picked up in the hands of Abrahams.
Yeah, that urn's a bit annoying though. It's a defensive turn in for One Win's side. Jamside on the other hand. Ooh, gotta be careful not to get stunned. Able to avoid it, but there's so much damage output. Wow! The frozen shelter, the heals coming on through, and suddenly Jamside is back to full HP, turning the fight on its head now on the pursuit. And again, that ice beam is so hard to escape. You cannot get out of there. It's gonna be Zenon going down. And what a turnaround. Saint coming in like an absolute hero.
He's had like 2 MVP moments in back-to-back weeks. Like that Singularity last week where he gets 5 players was huge against One Win, though they didn't win the game. Here, getting that frozen shelter to just keep Jamside in, but lock out Xenon helps get him back to full HP, down from 200 health to 1800. To turn that fight around was amazing. He's now looking for the turn on enemy territory. They do have the man advantage, but they have committed the frozen shelter before, so they can't use that to confirm this.
I see Paradox.
Yeah, this is a tricky one because the positioning is there now for One Win. There's been enough time that they were able to fight for this. It's an open terrain, so it does feel quite risky. But if Abrahams could pull it off, that would be a massive, massive advantage. And they're looking to go for it here. They're thinking about it. But again, they are on the low ground against the high ground positioning. It's just not going to work out. And so they're going to disengage. Maybe they can bait One Win out of that defensive positioning and then re-engage once they have moved forwards. And it does seem like they are looking for these fights. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to commit to it, though. And indeed, both teams finding a disengage, ultimately.
Yeah, I think One Win wanted to get aggressive there to allow Xenon to go for the pickup of the guard on the right-hand side. Gets them the 3rd guard in the game. Now we can really see like the soul differential between the 2 teams, only down to about 9K. That's Hoot. He's sticking around for a long time here, getting a lot of information for his team. But Abraham's, like, realistically, you're not looking to turn this in. You have Frozen Shelter now up, so you could go for it. But you're trying to keep that focus of One Win in that direction, because if they do overstep and commit and show too many players in a different position, that's an easy turn in. Well, speaking of easy turn in, Xenon steals away the urn here, and he actually is just going to go straight for it.
Yeah, I don't think it can be stopped. If he's able to just beeline it all the way there, Owl's going to go out to create some extra delay, and it's looking good for the Sun. And who's there on the spot, though, trying to create problems, but it's got to be really careful. Ult is online there, 200 HP, and not able to escape after coming out of it, though. And Abrahams are going to be falling up on that fight, trying to pursue to find the rest of the damage here. Urn is still in the hands of the Warden. Zenon backing away with that urn, but oh man, unable to fight with this team during that moment, just to make sure that urn goes to safety. And it's a hard calculation to make, but Abraham's come ahead there, and the lead extends their way once more.
That was dirty. Xenon drops the urn, and parries right away, seeing that heavy melee coming out of Hoot. He gets the parry onto him, which allows him to get him down to about 200 HP before he can even enter the shadows. But with those 3 kills coming through, it looks like Abrahams want to commit for the mid boss. So like, you know what? If you want to turn the urn, feel free. We're going to take Rejuve against you and use that to push down these walkers, get even further ahead. And realistically, there's no way you should be able to contest this. Flammable, he does have Stormcloud, but I feel like you're just going to be going into your death. And they go for it. The swap comes through. Can they still come through as well of overseas?
Oh, Abrahams managed to pick it up just in the nick of time. The 7-0 coming in over the top here is a massive damage there from Flammable, as OneWin absolutely needed to do as much damage as possible after conceding that rejuve. 3 rejuves now are going to be utilized for the loss of 2 players here from OneWin. Let's not forget, they picked up the urn. So actually, this is like a massive positive for OneWin. They're now 3K difference. It was so much larger, that deficit. That's a huge win.
And they also are going to have the lane shoving against them too, so they should almost surpass Abrahams in farm. It comes down to, can they keep their objectives alive? And you can already see with the way Abrahams are set up, they're looking for a push in this mid lane. And Walker, the hardest one to take, but it's not going to be long for this world. It's going to fall. And that's the next flex slot picked up here for Abrahams, as they have the right lane Walker down to almost half HP. And I wouldn't be too surprised to see them transition to this left-hand lane, because they still have a lot of big ultimates online. The lasso, plus the frozen shelter. But you know what? I know there's a man who wants to come in and talk about this game so far, because it's been a very action-packed game at 20 minutes. ZP, let's hear your thoughts.
I think my thoughts here is that we see the vision of OneWin's team comp from that last team fight, where the contest went way better than expected. And it wasn't just the 7 coming in with the Storm Cloud. They also were able to land a very good affliction in courtesy of Empty Dreams at the same time. And you kind of stop and look at OneWin's team comp right now. It is pretty much all in on AoE spirit damage, effectively. Like, their ideal comp here is they get Abrahams in a situation where Abrahams like wants to rush into them, and then they roll into like Storm Cloud, Affliction, etc., etc. And even though OneWin is a little bit behind at the moment, I actually think Abrahams has to be really, really careful how they take team fights, because if they get baited into a fight like they just did middle, where you're actually able to get reasonable value in on the Storm Cloud, I think things can go pretty poorly for them relatively quickly. So I think if you're Abrahams, you really have to play the fact that you have Mirage right now and try and set up fights that are quite bad for OneWin at the opening, rather than just getting stuck in a full team versus team fight, because that's what happened in the pit. And if that happens again, I think OneWin will likely win the fight and go from there. So very interesting team setups that have been created here.
And not even just the Mirage, right? The Calico, like, still provides a lot of split push potential to Food. So they really have to respect that, and actually get a catch directly on a Xenon. He's going to follow the 2-man push out of Abrahams on this left-hand side, because the urn was never the plan. It was for Walker, and they might come out with both. The frozen shelter comes in, they lock it in, and you almost need to disengage this fight. You don't have frozen shelter up anymore, and yet Abrahams, they're going to continue to go for the push and go for the catch.
Flammable does have the ult online, 7 ult online, and Unstoppable was also recently purchased, so that's going to be really nice to set up those 7 ults and make sure that you can kind of get them off clean without getting disabled. This pressure keeps coming in here on this Walker, and Taz trying to create shenanigans there on the high ground, getting forced away. And there is that ult coming on through the Storm Cloud, although the cube is going to be there to try to just keep Flammable safe, holding that forward line. But still, Abraham's unrelenting on their push into this objective. This Walker is going to go down. There's no 2 questions about it right now. It looks like OneWin a bit off more than they can chew with this defense. Taz, who all chiming in for frags. Everyone getting wiped here on the OneWin side as Abrahams keep pushing to success.
Just as they had a good comeback into the game, contesting the mid boss, they overcommitted to this fight when they had Xenon down. There was no need to really defend that Walker, because they didn't really gain much off of it. Now you give them the base. They're going to take down the base guards once the minions get here. They're looking even for the shrines at the same time. The respawns are going to be too long here, Dan. The Abrahams are going to be taking a hefty amount of souls and map control off of this.
Yeah, certainly a really, really big issue for OneWin to see. You know, just so few options to get back into the game after this point. After destruction, as we get additional kills getting picked up there from Abrahams. That's not good. You don't want to stagger your deaths in a situation like this. The entire base is going. This is actually kind of scary right now, Jason, because it feels like Abrahams could potentially stay in for this. And if there's one bad fight taken, they could win the game off of it.
There's no Storm Cloud either, so there's definitely an opportunity to go in. Al going to be coming through looking for a catch. We'll be able to slow down one person. I think Task will be biting the bullet for his team, as well as Saint, who died before. Please don't tell me Task gets away. Please don't tell me Task gets away. Someone kill him. Hello?
I like the movement.
Bro.
Ooh.
How does he
Nice little
escape?
punch. Because of the
Okay, well, Jam's
movement. Yeah, really well done there. Abraham's looking really good here. I mean, they're looking certainly like a shoo-in to win this one. And I feel like they've kept one win on their back foot almost in the entire match, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, think about how the game went, right? It was very aggressive out of Abraham's in the mid lane. They take down the Guardian. Tassin rotates to the left-hand side, apply pressure to Xenon and ABL. Eventually get that Guardian. They go for an earn turn on the right-hand side, and they end up getting a Guardian with as well off top of that. Like, they've been in full control the entire time. OneWin had that one opportunity to get back into the game off that Rejuvenator. But I still think it was maybe a misplay defending that Walker when there's realistically not much you're going to keep out of Abraham's hands. It's not like they were getting another flex unlock from the third Walker going down. But either way, they have to figure out how can they get back into the game. I mean, if we talk about like who's going to carry on the side of OneWin, we talked about Flambo a lot. Xenon, he's the most farmed at 26,000. But only comes even to Jam's side. Hoot's ahead of him, and Sap's at 31k. There's still like 3 big heavy hitters on Abraham's side they have to worry about, and he can't even survive long enough to really get his last stand off.
Yeah, one would need that perfect culmination, synergizing AoE spirit ults like ZP was describing. They are all grouped up together. They have all their ults online except the Affliction, which will be online very, very soon. If they can get one good team fight, it does feel like it is possible. There's only a 26k, 24k difference in souls at this point. That's not that insane. Oh, they've caught Hoot. They've managed to find the swap onto Hoot. And okay, Hoot's in trouble here. Popping the ult. Is there a way to get out of there? Sadly, with the rescue beam. That's beautiful there. And okay, the 7 ult's coming in with the Unstoppable, but 200 HP. What an escape coming on through from Flammable.
I don't know if that was escape or more like, oh crap, I got to get out of here, because he was somehow getting demolished in this fight. He looked to teleport over to the right-hand side, and he's not going to be here for the fight. They have no Stormcloud. This should be a free earn for Abraham's. When you can't really contest this, if you're going to contest it, you're basically giving up the game, especially with mid-boss spawning in. And they're going to go for it here, Dan.
Is in there with the cube also to disrupt that and drop off, but having to instantly cube there, left low, able to get taken out quite easily. Jam side, who the Abraham's team are just having a field day on this drop-off spot, and this might be the fight that precedes the winning moments for Abraham's, because it does not seem like a contest. One when they can't quite seem to combine forces in the way that they want to have a good team fight. They're getting isolated one by one, picked off, and now everyone is dead.
Yeah, and the Patron's already been transformed. It's in phase 2. This should be the closer coming through. When Empty Dreams try to do something and maybe take on the other 1v1, add something to the highlight reel. They retreat back to base. And actually, I don't know, Abraham's are still fighting. I guess they technically don't have waves pushed in any of the lanes. They have to shove one of these lanes forward. And now they're just going to go for the... Oh, I'm a little bit scared, actually, if they just try to go for the Patron right now. Oh, it doesn't have backdoor protection.
Yeah,
why does it have backdoor protection?
I don't know, Jason.
I don't know either.
I don't know. Just maybe they've got to buy that. I don't know how to explain that, but it's going to be the victory for Abraham's over OneWin. OneWin again, one of the teams to be on the European end of things. Their struggles continue, but Abraham's, they kept them on the back foot. They look legit in every category from start to finish. Congratulations to them. They're going to be fighting against a VP for the money match. And to bring you back in, ZP, we had a great performance here from Abraham's.
Yeah, we really did. And one thing that was interesting to me, by the way, at the very end, I think, Jason, you had the perfect call going, wait, why are you guys going to contest this? It will be the end of the game if you go in without your 7. And of course, it was, in fact, the end of the game going in without the 7. And it was a weird call to me, because if you just let the urn get turned in there, you probably get at least another good team fight. So OneWin deciding to go all in minus the 7 when they're running a comp that basically needs to get full, essentially, wombo combo, a little weird to me at the very end.
Yeah, and I was like thinking, I mean, obviously Stormcloud was on cooldown, so you can't contest the urn even though it's in a prime position, kind of like an open area that you can use that Stormcloud. But if you just wait a little bit longer, it's going to be up for when they push your base, and then you have that freedom to really put the damage down if you have enough damage behind it. But I mean, either way, at some point for OneWin, you have to make a fight happen. And maybe they felt like with the Affliction out of Empty Dreams was big enough that they could commit into that fight. But as we saw, it didn't work out. And Abraham's are once again going to get the shot at the title up against VP.
Yeah, it's impressive stuff. Do you guys feel like Abraham's, as we kind of gear up the... Actually, in fact, are we going to do the Intel player of the match, CP? Who did you pick?
Oh, our Intel player of the match, or player of the match presented by Intel, depending on our feelings of the day. Well, it's got to be Saint, as far as where I'm at right now. Because, yeah, I mean, the saves were ridiculous. There were multiple times where we may have seen one win start to get a foothold in the game by, especially trying to target out Gem side, and Saint was repeatedly there with the saves. Just rescue beam into Frozen Shelter and just right place, right time, just completely getting maximum value out of the Kelvin and also being able to chase down kills afterwards. I mean, what more do you want from your Kelvin player?
I think this save right here was amazing. Look how low Gem side gets. 200 HP, rescue beam, Frozen Shelter, back to full HP, and then he releases them. He's like, okay, you can go now, as he takes the Frozen Shelter down. They go for the chase, and then they, like, Xenon, you're not going to escape this. I feel like Saint almost like single-handedly in a lot of these situations prevented Xenon from really coming online, because the amount of healing that he was able to do in these fights, the position he was playing from, to really, like, not allow Xenon to get any sort of snowball in the game.
Yeah, it was a really good performance, and it really helped to, keep that pressure on when it felt like, because it's so hard for them to get any of those kills in those moments where then they would have to give up position like frequently because of that on the map. So I feel like there's a lot of factors that allowed Abrahams to stay ahead in terms of the pressure game. But here we go.
What do we have here? Production's been cooking.
That's production W right there, is what we have.
Can we get some production W's in the chat for our lovely production crew who put this together? We now have an end game stat screen for you. And if you haven't noticed, souls by source, you can see where every player got their soul income and their build in the game.
Treasure? What is treasure though?
Damn it, Dan. You're supposed to ask about this. And you can even see what Guardians were taking and when Jews and Walkers were taken at the bottom. God damn.
Yeah, this is so dope.
So let's dive into it then. Saint, 15k healing. No one really came close to him. Hoot with 10k, but obviously it's gonna be a lot of self-healing. It's very overwhelming. There's so much information to look at here that I feel like we can see on the screen for like 5 hours. But you are right, Dan. We don't fully know, because I think our producer Solomon was telling us there's like 14 different sources of souls in the game, and we're not 100% sure where all of them go. But I want to say treasure is like the gold breakables, and then breakables, which I don't think you've seen a couple players, is the boxes, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yeah, it's we'll definitely figure it out over time. And if you guys have any interesting theories, please feel free to post them in the chat. If you know, maybe you just know, maybe you straight up nerd because you're a nerd like that. But yeah, this is awesome that we get to see this, and also the items are displayed within order of purchase. That's what we understand as well. So we get to see sort of how the game progressed there in that respect too. So yeah, awesome stuff from production, because we often wonder, we want to see that picture as to how effective were the players in regards to like different types of farm. And for example, a Calico, that's something that's going to be really interesting to see how those numbers are going to be differentiated between one Calico to the next, given that it's a very important aspect to the hero to be able to farm the boxes, for example, over other heroes.
I think one thing that's really important to look at here, I think too, maybe not so much in this game aside from Hoot, but just the idea of how many souls was someone able to get from kills and roaming the map versus how much did they get from just being in lane and going from troopers, where you look at Hoot was able to get a massive contribution soul wise from kills, which is also supported by the actual kills you have there. And then you compare it over to Xenon was stuck in lane for most of the game, as you can tell from the trooper soul count, which is also reflected in the player damage, where the entire game was basically the promise of Warden will get ahead of the game, but not actually getting to meaningfully contribute to a whole lot of fights. So some of the stats here, I think, really help sort of confirm the eye test for what you see from performance-wise from some of the heroes in the game.
So I'm gonna give a shout out here to 99 Lives in chat. He says, wouldn't treasure be when you pick up the bag from someone who died? That makes perfect sense thinking about it, because Hoot with his 12 kills, I mean, he was diving very aggressively in that right-hand lane, was able to pick up quite a few bags off of players. Currently sit at 2.5k souls from treasure alone. So big shout out to you, because that actually might be true. But I did want to just, pull our attention down to the bottom of the screen, because we talked about like control of that game. It's all blue, which means Woman lost so many objectives. I mean, you see the first 3 gardens of the game taken out by Abrahams. In response, 3 gardens directly, but there was no chance for Woman to ever play aggressive. They were constantly on that back foot because of the aggression, the positions Abraham was taking, not to mention that soul lead. But the big turnaround happened around that 20-minute mark when that rejuvenator was confirmed out of Abrahams, but Woman got a massive spike in souls. But there was no looking back from there on past the 20-minute mark as Abrahams continued to just run this game down.
Okay, production need a raise. I can't afford to give them one though, so I hope someone can, because they definitely deserve it.
I mean, this is cool. I mean, and breaking this down, because you can just look at this and go, you know, at a distance, okay, what in the world is going on here? And if nothing else, you can look at this and you could go back into, you know, the game code that, of course, we always provide and just go in. Okay, I have a thought from looking at these stats. Now let me observe the player and see if it pans out. So breaking games down after the fact, now we can, you know, look at this a little bit more in depth. Really, really cool. But
ZP,
yes,
can I tease it? Because there actually is something that's being worked on by a certain man named Lotu that hopefully by me saying this puts the pressure on to get it done sooner, that we might have even more things coming in the next weeks to be cooked up to show for you guys. It's going to help us analyze even more. I don't want to spoil what it is in case it doesn't get done, but it's pretty sick.
Look, blame Lotu if it doesn't get done. That's the important thing.
I blame him about anything.
He works better under pressure. Just how it goes, you know?
Awesome. Well, I think guys, with that all that said, we can look at the match that's coming up next. We've got VP versus Abrahams. And I think it's gonna be a good one because we just saw what Abrahams could do to one win. They played a great game individually, early game, mid game, late game, just all of the games, all of the things. They did very well. So I'm curious to see what happens in this next match. It should be a good one. But with that said, it's time to take a quick break so we can get set up for that. We'll see you shortly after this.